This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Ton of things to get into with the Browns. We're starting to get to that point to where the self-evaluation of the team part is wrapping up, and we're moving towards getting more pieces, adding players, getting more explosive on offense, getting more definitive on the defensive side of the ball, and somebody to shoot the breeze with on this conversation is my guy, G Bush. G, how you doing today, man?
What's up, man? Season is over. You know,
it's been over for like a month now, dog.
What'd you say?
It's been over for like 3 weeks now, dog.
Yeah, I just got over it about 2 days ago. Like, man, come on, man. Yeah, season's over. Now, you know, this is the tabloid season, right? I call this TMZ season. You know what I'm saying? A lot of allegations flying around, man. It's all about the gossip and the tea in February.
Yeah, see, I stay away from all of that. You know, I'm not really much about the drama, to be honest with you.
You fly above the fray.
Yeah, I guess that's a term. Right. Do you know, like, do you have these terms where you say them, you have no idea what they actually mean? Like, what does fry above the fray means? Like, what's a fray?
I think a fray is like a medieval term for a fray or a fracas or a dust up. So I would say fray would probably be like, you know, ground level soldiers on horses fighting each other, and you fly ahead in a helicopter or something. Or
in a helicopter?
Helicopter or something.
I don't know. I don't know, dog.
I could have said jet. I was trying to diversify.
Oh, okay. You went from medieval to jet. I was just like, how do we get here?
I couldn't think of nothing. I couldn't think of no medieval flying machines, man. Like they
didn't exist. They didn't exist, bro. We didn't learn how to fly to the 19th. So, like, where did that term come from? Because fracas sounds medieval, right? Like that does sound old.
Yeah.
But it's like it's flying. Like, are they talking about birds? See, look, we got all these phrases.
Was it an alternative rock, rock group called the Fray?
I have no clue, G. Alternative rock. I have no clue.
Yeah, hey, shout out to the Fray. Put it in the comment section. Yeah, there was a group called the Fray. And they listen, maybe they did a song called I Know How to Save a Life. Yep.
Is that? I thought that's Fringe though, right?
I think it's the Fray.
I know the song you're talking about because it was like on Grey's Anatomy or something like that, right? Like,
yeah. That era is just completely gone. Like whatever happened to those guys.
The sad boy rock era?
Yeah, just Good Charlotte, My Chemical Romance. Whatever happened to those guys? They just fell off.
G Bush was going through it in the early 2000s.
What do you mean? Listen, that was
where your striped sweater at, man? Like
when you used to walk into Abercrombie and Fitch in the mall, man. Whatever they had, you go by Abercrombie and Fitch. Woo,
you time travel to 2005. You walk past G Bush apartment and you just hear, "And I know what you did." Like, just blasted out of there. Like, who is that? And you see big ass G Bush walk out of that apartment.
Man, listen, 30 seconds to Mars. Whatever happened to them, man? They had great names, by the way. Great names back then.
You was on the scene, dog. Like, you know, the B-sides and everything.
Yeah, man.
Was it Scene? I think it was called Scene, right? Like
Daughtry, you know what I'm saying?
Okay. You Simple Plan? Was you rocking the Simple Plan?
Yes. Evan, I don't know if Evanescence counts as teeny rock.
No, that's Scene. That's Scene, right? That was like the gothic, like dark hair. Yeah. Yeah, that was the Scene.
And then you got, of course, you had Creed back in the day.
That was that gospel? Was that like Christian? It ain't gospel, kinda. But it's Christian rock. That's what they call it. Okay, Christian rock, right?
and he would they are dressed like Christian praise and worship guys. If you've ever been to one of those
Well,
mega
Creed,
churches where you
yeah,
had the
Creed is the Christian band.
yeah, and
Nickelback
then
is
you
the
have
annoying
youth
one.
group, and
Uh-huh.
your pastor is Pastor Tim and his wife. You have youth group, and you guys praise together. It's mostly music. You guys have fun social atmospheres with just drinking punch. You have
Mm-hmm.
a girlfriend, but you just can't, touch her or anything. You just look at each other and hang out, read
Wait, wait,
scripture.
wait, wait. Oh, you talking about Creed? I'm like, what's G Bush on right now?
I was
All right,
setting up. I was
all
setting
right.
up that my life as a you people be knowing you be ministry is a huge thing, especially when you go to a minute like a big like mega church. They set ministry up so they got the youth group right. So you go in and instead of you going to the clubs, instead of you drinking and doing all kind of other crazy worldly things, you go to youth group. You read the Bible. You listen to songs that are Christian, but they sound secular. They sound secular. You get your praise and worship on, and then you have a girlfriend at the time, but you can't really do anything but hold hands. So you just hold hands every time. Just that's what life in suburbia is when you go to a mega church.
Man, Athens took control of you, dog. Like I guess you went to OU and just you would they got your music sets right there because like I didn't know you were so well versed in the alternative rock scene. Like, hey,
Oh,
look, hey, we learn something new every day.
every
G
time.
Bush, a rock connoisseur of sorts, like I didn't know my man knew all the bands down there. And look, some of that stuff do be hitting. Like it
Third
do
Eye
be hitting.
Blind,
Yeah.
shout out to them.
Look, most stuff I don't know of. But speaking of things we don't know of, we don't know what the Browns are going to do in free agency this year. I've been making the argument that if the Browns do get a wide receiver, you need to get bigger wide receivers. I've been making this argument for like 4 years. Like, I don't know why it's such a controversial argument to make every time I make it. I feel like you want wide receivers to be big. And I understand. I'm not saying that the only wide receivers that can be good are big, but I'm saying if a wide receiver is good and he's big, that's usually better. Like I know Tyreek Hill exists, but there's one Tyreek Hill that exists, right? There are plenty of 6'4" wide receivers that are pretty damn good. And I think the Browns, one of the things that they've lacked, is size at the wide receiver position for a very long time. And when David Njoku's the only big guy that you have that you can roll out there, that's going to make it easy for defenses to cover. But if you have a multitude of options, I think that would be good. Now, obviously, the dream for me is Mike Evans. I know people be like, oh, Quincy, he's getting old, all this stuff. I don't care about that shit. The Browns are trying to win the Super Bowl this year. So hey, you bring in Mike Evans, guess what? I ain't got to worry about that. Like,
Man,
I ain't got to worry
Quincy,
about that at all. That's plug and play. Mike Evans, DeAndre Hopkins, he played well last year, so he probably going to be good this year.
what you think, Hollywood Brown?
That's more of what we already have, man. It's just another fast, smaller target. Like,
I don't feel like we have passed people.
no, Elijah Moore is fast. It's you don't realize. Here's the thing: Elijah Moore is fast, but you can't get the ball downfield to him because he's not big. Like, and he doesn't have great contact balance. The same thing for Marquise Brown. I mean, not Marquise Brown, Marquise Goodwin. You can throw the ball deep to him, but if anybody touches him, if that safety gets to him, he can't finish through contact. So it really doesn't matter how fast he is. Like, unless you have like Marvin Mims was the only guy I saw last year that came out that was small, fast, could finish through contact. And you saw that in Denver at times where he was able to get those big plays downfield. And I think with Russ gone and a new offense in there, he probably going to see a lot more out of Marvin Mims. But that's the thing. If you have a small guy, he has to be a physical guy, like a finish through contact, like Jarvis Landry, not fast, but finish through contact. You could throw the ball deep to him. But when you have these guys who are smaller that can't finish through contact, you're going to still be sitting here at the end of the season wondering why you can't create explosive plays or why you can't stretch the defense out, despite the fact that you have that speed, because they can't finish through contact. So they're not true threats downfield. They're not 50-50 ball threats. Elijah Moore is faster than Amari Cooper. Would you agree?
Yes.
Marquise Goodwin is faster than Amari Cooper. Would you agree?
Yes.
Who scored all the long touchdowns for the Cleveland Browns this year?
Mark Cooper
And
and Joku.
so, like, speed in my mind, like it's important to have. Cool, you can stretch the field with it. You already got somebody who's fast enough to do that. But it's a gimmick. Like most of these receivers, size, contact balance, finishing through contact, ability to just catch in high point of 50-50 ball. Like, you know what makes Tyreek Hill special? It's not that he's fast. It's that he's fast, quick, physical, and you've seen him. He could catch through contact like the best of them. Like, he could go up there, high point of ball, like a 6'5" receiver at 5 foot, whatever, right? And that's what makes Tyreek Hill special. So when we just look for speed and we want to add somebody like a Hollywood Brown or something like that, it's like, how many times do we have to do this until we learn the lesson, right? Like, that's the one thing that I would be frustrated with the wide receiver position. Is like, we did this with Anthony Schwartz. We did this with Elijah Moore. We're going to try to do it with a Marquise Brown or something like that. And to me, it's like, size matters at wide receiver. I don't care what anybody tells you, especially when you have a quarterback like Deshaun who likes to push the ball downfield, who likes to move on the run. The size, that stuff matters, because people always say this, right? Deshaun likes to throw to his tight ends. Hey, man, what do tight ends have in common with everything I just said? They're usually the biggest dudes on the field, right?
When you take a look at the wide receiver, first and foremost, Cleveland Browns are horrible at evaluating receivers. We'll just put that out there. I would disagree that Elijah Moore is fast. Elijah Moore is Scooby-Doo fast. It just seems like this man runs in the same spot. He gets ragdolled down after catch. He falls down a lot. And the thing that I talk about a lot is not only the size, it's the wingspan and catch radius. When you're throwing to smallish receivers, you have very little room for error in terms of where the ball needs to be placed for them to be effective and keep moving. A guy that with a big catch radius that can help you out. I always think of the guys out there, and you don't have to be huge, but guys that could go up and get contested footballs. And to me, I'm coming up with this thing called Operation Stockpile. The Cleveland Browns, I'll be damned if I care about the cap. I don't care about none of that. The Cleveland Browns must do whatever they can to not only get another receiver, they might need 2 receivers. And I say that because you look around at these other teams, and if you want to say that Deshaun Watson may not be in the top 5 in terms of guys and quarterbacks, you got Burrow, you got Allen, you got Lamar Jackson, you got Patrick Mahomes, you got Herbert, you got some of those other guys. Say you put them at 5. You're going to have to beat 3 out of those top 5 teams to even sniff the Super Bowl. And a lot of those teams have better skill positions than you do. So if you expect and you want to do something with Deshaun Watson, you can't just go with status quo and just say, well, let me go get this pedestrian guy. Nah, you got to be looking around to get you somebody. And I love Mike Evans. Mike Evans sounds awesome. And I know people will say, well, do you want that much money allocated to 2 older receivers? You got Amari Cooper. No. Let's forget that. Mike Evans will do his thing. Stop playing around with me. Those 2 guys, now that's a difference maker.
Yeah, I think sometimes people ask themselves too many questions when the question is simple when adding a player, especially like a big name player. Does he make you better? Is the football team better with him on the roster? Don't tell me about, oh, well, then you're going to have this much money allocated to wide receivers, and this is not. Is the team going to, like when you are rebuilding and you're at the beginning, that shit does matter, right? Okay, you don't want to have too much money allocated because you don't have what you need yet. But the Browns have what they need. Yes. They've made the moves at almost every position to have what they need. They have what they need at defense. They feel like, okay, they're going to be able to make those moves there. They have what they need on the offensive side of the ball. They traded for somebody at quarterback they feel like should be able to get the job done. Who knows if he's going to be able to do it, but That's who they traded for. That's who they chose to do this. So it's like, hey man, at this point, it don't matter how much money you have allocated anywhere. That's overthinking it. The Browns are at this point where it's like, hey, you think you're close. You think you could be Baltimore next year, right? Baltimore did something similar, fired their defensive coordinator, fired their offensive coordinator, and then came in with a new offense for Lamar Jackson. Because why did they have to do that? Why did they have to fire the offensive coordinator? Because Lamar was not happy in that offense. He wanted to do more. And you had no chance of getting him back in Baltimore if you told him we were running it back with Greg Roman. Because they waited, right? Lamar's been complaining about that offense. Hollywood Brown complained about that offense for like 3 years. Got traded because of it. And then you finally make the move in Lamar's contract year to keep him. And you see what happens. He gets his second MVP. So the Browns think they're that close. And if you're that close, hey, man, the Ravens threw $15 million at Odell just to be sure about wide receiver. Like, you can't tell me the Browns aren't in a similar position.
Why? Let me ask you this question real quick, because you said something that really was fascinating. You said a lot of times when it comes to big name people, you just ask yourself one simple question: does this person make you better? I don't know about you on your channel, but while on my channel or UCSS or the radio, I get this a lot. Fans are super reluctant when you mention names, like big names or names of anybody. And the one thing that you get is that people will either say, I don't want to give that person the money, or I don't really think that like we're better with what we have. Have you, first of all, questioning is, have you seen that phenomenon with the individuals that you interact with on your channel? And two, why do you believe that when it comes to the salary cap, people are very quick to say, we can't do that because of the salary cap, and they may not even understand how the cap is going up? Why do you think people are very conservative about that?
I don't think people actually have a philosophy on the salary cap. I just think the salary cap's a convenient excuse to not want somebody. It's this nebulous thing that always means whatever you want. It's like out coach. You can tag out coach to anybody, right? Like, what does it actually mean? We have no universal idea of what out coach. Everybody has if I ask for a definition of out coach, I will get 45 different definitions of out coach, because the term is not made to be useful in an argument. The term just exists to convey an emotion. You're not happy with coaching. We got out coached, right? And I think when people go to the salary cap to justify why they don't want a good player, they're saying, yeah, this player's good, but I don't want him for some reason. So my reason's going to be money, whether it makes sense or not. Because you also know, whenever somebody says it's money, or not everybody does this, but most people, when they say, oh, it's money, it's the money. You show them, okay, well, the money, it ain't that big of a deal. We do this and that. They're like, well, you don't know how the cap works. It's like, okay, cool. This was never about the salary cap. It's like with Deshaun's contract. It doesn't matter that contract is not that expensive anymore. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that there are quarterbacks like Jared Goff is going to get more than $230 million guaranteed this offseason. Tua is going to get more than $230 million guaranteed this offseason. Jordan Love might get more than $230 million guaranteed. Hell, Baker Mayfield might come in at a higher annual number than Deshaun Watson for the next 3 years. Because it always goes up. But that does not matter, because the criticism about the contract is not really about the contract. It's about who you gave the contract to. The contract's just a convenient reason to be extra critical of that player, right? And that's one of those things where it's like, okay, you have to sort out what people are actually serious about and what people are kind of just saying, well, it's the salary cap. Are they just saying, I don't want to do this and I don't have a better reason to say I don't want to do this other than salary cap? Are they legitimately concerned about the salary cap? Because like fans truly are not that worried about what happens in 2 years, because the team will do stuff that's short term all the time, and then people will be all happy about it because it gives you a quick burst. But I think when people like cry about the salary cap, for the most part, like there are people who do know what they're talking about, who spend a lot of time studying the salary cap, who do this professionally, right? Because even people who work in sports don't really understand the salary cap 100%. But
so what you're telling me, the salary cap is like the national deficit, right? See, I snuck that one in. Guys, I'm talking. Guys, don't get mad. I didn't say.
It's like any. It's a talking point.
Yes,
basically, it's a talking point.
Yeah,
and it's like any talking point. It's like, okay, once that talking point gets destroyed, we'll move on to a different talking point. That, like, it's not something you actually fundamentally believe in, like, the salary cap and you got to be responsible. Like, nobody actually fundamentally cares about what the Browns does.
And I always ask people, Q, if you're mad about Deshaun Watson's contract, name me one person that the Cleveland Browns wanted to get or acquire, but they could not because Deshaun Watson's contract was prohibitive.
You know what they're mad about? They're mad that you moved on from Baker Mayfield for Deshaun Watson and then gave Baker Mayfield's money in these people's eyes to Deshaun Watson when that was the last thing that a lot of people wanted. That's what it is. Like, whether the people who hold the torch the hardest about this are honest about it. I'm not saying this is everybody who does not like Deshaun Watson. There's plenty of different flavors of this, but
it's about 60%.
But like a good chunk, like, this is why, right? This is why they feel that way. There's another chunk that's like legitimately they just don't like him, and yes, that's fair. But it's just, to me, when it comes to certain things, salary cap especially, we only bring it up when we don't want to do something, right? It's kind of like when your family wants, I'm trying to avoid making this political because the only good analogs to this are really political, but right, I'll try to make this more household. See, it's like this.
That's what I commend you for, Quincy. I'd have been all down the road. You know what it is. Go ahead.
If, let's say, you got a gambling problem, or for those of us who have had single parents, right?
Right.
It ain't ever in the budget when I want to go to Chuck E. Cheese, right? All of a sudden, we got to worry about the budget when I want to go to Chuck E. Cheese or when I want to go to Toys R Us. But when you want to go on a date with Daryl or whatever, like, you know, all of a sudden, like, that's in the budget. Like, you know, it's stuff like that where it's like, okay, it's about the priority, you know, like, it's not really a principle. It's not, oh, we're broke, we need to watch our money. It's okay, I just don't want to spend that money on that person because I really just don't want that person on the team.
It's a perfect example. My mom used to, you know, before I would come up and she would say, all right, I would be like, hey, I want to get this video game. If I get straight A's on my report card, which is very hard to do, I want to get this. I want a PlayStation, right? And she'll say, we'll see. And I used to get an attitude because I would be like, what do you mean we'll see? Now, when you want to punish me, if I got D's, it wouldn't be no like, wait till next semester to see if you bring them up and then we won't punish you. It's like, it's instantaneous. It's right. When you want me to clean that room, it's now. When you want me to go upstairs, it's now. When them dishes need done, it's today. But when I need something, when I'm trying to motivate myself and get the Jordans, you talking about, so we'll wait and see. I don't like wait and see. I'm not motivated by wait and see. I need concrete answers right down today.
Yeah, like, or when the team even has success, people are like, well, wait till 2020. It's like, you don't want this to work out and you want it to work out badly so you can be right. And you're holding on that the salary cap's going to crash or something so you could be proven right. Like, it's just people want validation or they don't want something to happen, but they don't want to outright say they don't want something to happen. So they just use, like, the cap is nebulous like that. But the last few minutes of this video, I did want to talk about something. Now, we're going to be careful with this because, you know, we got friends on both sides of this whole thing, this whole little mini controversy. but we gonna talk about Stump Mitchell when keeping it real goes wrong, right? Like that was to me what I took away from that interview. Like, shout out to Cam. I thought she did a great job hosting that interview. She wasn't really even pecking for it. I think Stump kind of volunteered some quotes that might have made it unfavorable. And again, you know, I don't want to take anything out of context. I have the link in the description of my Stump Mitchell video. Make sure you watch the full video so you can have the full context of everything that was said. But for the most part, a lot of people were upset about Stump's comments. Some people jived with it, some people didn't. But I just walked away from it being like, see, somebody told me a long time ago something that I found to be true. And for those of you in the audience who might want to get a career in media, this is something you might want to learn. That quote, keeping it real goes wrong. It's real. Sometimes, look, I know this has been said to you, G, multiple times. Sometimes being right ain't everything. Right? Like when you first get into this, when I first started doing this, being right was if I had a point that I thought I was right about, it was everything to me.
Credibility, and everything.
Yeah, everything. And look, that doesn't mean you just come out here and lie to people. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. But what you do learn is that sometimes you being right is a part of it, not the whole thing.
Do you think he violated the bro code?
I think he demonstrated.
Is that dry snitching? Was he dry snitching?
I would categorize, if it happened to me.
Yes.
Like if I were Kareem Hunt and this had happened to me, I would feel like I had been dry snitched on. Like, I would not blame Kareem Hunt or his people for being very upset at this interview in the way that Stump Mitchell talked about him. I don't think that Stump Mitchell came out trying to ether Kareem Hunt. I don't think he took the interview to be like, yeah, man, I'm about to tell Kareem Hunt, I'm about to tell the world that Kareem Hunt ain't about nothing. I think that he legitimately went into that interview and he was diagnosing. It was too soon after he got fired, by the way, like to put himself in this position. I think that's the first mistake. Hey, man, if I get a job with ESPN, Turner Sports, or Fox, right? I'm sorry, dog. I'm not coming on the next day to talk about it. Like, that's just because I'm not going to say that's smart, because there's a lot of things that are going on in my head, right? I'm trying to figure out why I got fired. Was it my fault? Did I say too much? Were they hating? Were people trying to conspire? Like, you're trying to figure out all of this stuff when you get fired, especially in a big boy job, right? Like, these are all the things that you're trying. Like, we've all been in these situations. We've been let go, had opportunities taken away from us for whatever reason. And you're sitting there and you're self-evaluating. And if somebody pointed a microphone in your face and asked you a question about it, might not be the best time. So that's first mistake I thought was on Stump's part. He took the interview too early, and he said some things publicly that I think if he had thought about it better, he wouldn't have. Because what I feel like he was doing was self-evaluating, right? Hey, I'm the running backs coach. You're asking me, what do I feel like I could have done better? And the first thing that pops to my mind is, man, I feel like Kareem could have been so much better than what he was. He's already good, but I feel like I feel like that's the one guy on that roster. There was a lot to squeeze out of that I just couldn't find out how to get it. And then once you get there, you start getting to, why couldn't you get the thing to squeeze out? And like a lot of things, some things are other people's fault. Some things are your fault. And he was like, well, I just couldn't communicate with them. Couldn't get him to focus. Couldn't get him to show up on time. Couldn't be him to get him to do this. I talked to Deshaun. I talked to Jacoby. Like, and he's trying to figure it out. And he was working all of that stuff out on an interview that was going to be aired to the public. If this were a conversation that he had with Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, where everybody involved knows the situation, knows what Kareem Hunt does or does not do at practice, and that would have been fine. But having that conversation in the public where we don't know if what he's saying about about Kareem Hunt's work ethic is true or not, that's where I'm like, that's problematic. You can't do that, because now it leaves us to speculate. And we're not going to believe anything that Kareem Hunt says, because of course he's going to say he not lazy, right? Like, of course he's going to say he show up on time.
Right.
Of course he's going to defend himself. So like, that's not going to sway anybody's opinion. But you coming out here saying that, well, that is going to sway people's opinion. And I think that was not the most tactful decision by Stump Mitchell, if I'm being constructive about that. And again, this is another thing where keeping it real goes wrong. I've had a keeping it real goes wrong moment this year where I was like, man, I can't believe nobody could see that Joe Flacco's 38 and that this is obviously going to end. Like, it's obviously going to have its end. Was I right? Ultimately, yes. Did it matter? No. Because that's not what that moment was about.
Right.
That moment was about making the best out of what was going on. I missed that. So because I missed that, I was so focused on being right that I didn't realize it didn't matter, because that's not what was important at that time.
Let me tell you this, and I'll give you an analogy kind of a little bit, and hopefully this helps people out. I'm very conscious that I am one of a few Black people that are in the industry, right? And there are times when I started coming up, and as I started to do my channel, I used to do my shows, and when people would disagree with me on something, they would just automatically just throw Quincy's name in there, like, oh yeah, like yeah, you're a hack. We like Quincy better anyway. That's why his show's 10 times better than yours, right? And when people do that, right, you could either do one or two things. You could either bow down and get in your feelings and then say something that's negative towards another person that you don't even know or even work with, to try to make yourself like look a certain way, or you could just ignore it and do, just go about your business. And one of the things that I hold near and dear is you're not going to use me as a tool to slander another African-American Black man that's trying to make it. Like, you're not going to use me as you guys are going to go against each other. No, you can't puppet master me like that. And one of the things I'm very conscious of is when I say something or I mention another person's name, I'm saying it on a platform. Like, you got a platform, I got a platform. So that means a lot of people are seeing that. I could say something and it'd be like, and they ask me a question and I come out and just say something about Quincy, right? Quincy like, yo, bro, you got my number. First and foremost, why you bring my name up, bro? Like, you wasn't even talking. The conversation wasn't even about me. And you just you just crazy. What I want to always come off as, you let the next person make their decision based upon them meeting each other. Don't put a narrative out or say something that could have somebody look in a certain type way that will eliminate an opportunity. And Kareem Hunt obviously wants to continue to play in the league, but when your coach and your position coach says something like that about you, it's an uphill battle for you to be able to stick in the league, because that's the fraternity. That's the political nature of it. And for me, I just felt like what he said was something that he could have called, used his phone, called him. It was something he could have said. He could have met him. I mean, they know where each other live probably. I just don't think it was the right format to say out in the open. I would have just said, one of my biggest regrets is, we didn't make it to the Super Bowl. I couldn't, I wanted to help the Browns go further. We didn't reach that goal, but I want to thank all of the running backs for giving me an opportunity to coach them, and let Kareem fall where Kareem's going to fall. Right.
Yeah. And there's I love constructive criticism, right? Because it helps you. And I think there's a line from being constructive and being destructive, because if you are being constructive, that's not for public consumption, right? Yes, like, if correct. Me or you had a constructive criticism about each other, we're not going to do that live on the air of our respective shows and tell G. Bush how to run his show or tell me. We have each other's number for that, right? Like, that constructive criticism is usually reserved for people that you know personally, right? Like, that's the one thing I think people get wrong. Because sometimes, sometimes a lot of people will try to offer some constructive advice, and look, I'm a public figure. I understand that you have to get at me publicly. That's fine. But it's hard to get public criticism received unless it's coming from somebody you know, because you never know the intention of somebody who's just commenting on your page, because it's the internet. It could be anybody, right? but constructive criticism is it usually comes from somebody personally, not publicly. And I think that's the one thing people miss, because like people will say like all kind of stuff and then be like, oh well, it's constructive criticism. Like you'll see Shaq do this all the time. It's like, yeah, but it's not for, it shouldn't be for public consumption. Like if you're saying something on a TV show, it's content. It's not constructive criticism, right? So I always hate when people do that. And to me, it's like, hey, were you being constructive or were you being destructive? Because if your goal was to make Kareem Hunt better, how's he going to get better if nobody hires him? That's like, you got to fully think that out. Like if that's truly the goal, you want Kareem Hunt to get better. And I think in some way it was Stump's goal to get Kareem Hunt to be better. Then you have to make sure that you're not so flagrant with how you criticize him that he doesn't get any opportunities. He's already an older running back. It's going to be tough for him. And that's where I was like, I felt like, okay, Stump, like, I don't want to say he went in there, did anything bad or tried to tear somebody down or whatever. But I do think he wasn't thorough enough with his intention on that interview, right? And whenever you speak to somebody and you're in a position of power, a position of authority over players, and then you speak over the players you had direct authority over, you need to really be intentional with what you say.
I always say,
like, even like small scale stuff. Like I used to be an RA when I was in college. Mm-hmm. If I spoke about my residents, good or bad, I need to make sure I was intentional with that, because I could say something not positive and that person could be off the campus in 2 weeks.
Right.
Just life changed because something happened. Nobody knows what went down. And I said I didn't have a great opinion of that person. If I'm not intentional and careful with what I'm saying, that person can be gone off campus in a matter of weeks. Life change irreversibly. And vice versa, right? If I recommend somebody for a scholarship and I know the right people, that person can have their life changed. So it's always like when you're in a position of authority over anybody and you're asked to speak over somebody you had direct authority over, it is up to you to have that responsibility with how you speak about people, because that is something that holds a lot more weight than that person defending themselves.
I used to, I was a manager in corporate America, and I remember just being middle management, and I got 23, 24, 25 direct reports. And you during their evaluation, you determine their raises, you're determining progressive discipline, you're determining their probation, all that good stuff. And also you're in charge of, referrals and references. So people will put me down on their as a reference, and people can get mad at me if they want to about it. Like if somebody called me and asked me about a person, like I always say, look, I'm going to give them the positive attributes. I'm not going to go in that interview trying to make it. Now, if they're a serial killer or they just was the worst horrible guy in the world, I'm not going to give you an endorsement. But if everything's equal, my philosophy is I'm not going to stop you from getting a job. But what I will do is say, hey, so-and-so called me about an interview, right? So-and-so called me about your resume, and I told him some good things, but here's what I want to tell you.
Yeah.
When you was under me, here's some things that you need to work on. I think that your attendance was spotty. I think you were motivated the first 4 months, but your performance tailed off a little bit. I think you was over break time a lot of times. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to progress in life. And I need you to work on those things. If you work on those things, I think you will be successful in a new job. But if you don't, you might not be so successful. And I'm just giving you that criticism off the record. And so I'm not going to be the person that stands in front of you making no money, or you progressing in life. You'll take care of yourself anyway. But your work ethic will show you who you're going to be anyway, in or out.
And here's why I think this is important in the context of football, right? Because we kind of took this from life to football, to life back to football, which is what we do here. But the reason this is important when it comes to football is when you're a coach in the NFL, you're not just a coach coaching ball. You're in charge of people who are trying to make their entire livelihood in 5 to 7 years.
Yes.
Like, think about that. They're trying to make all the money that they're going to ever need for a lifetime in 5 to 7 years. if they're lucky. That is, you are in charge of that. And in order for all of that to go well, these players need to have no doubt in their mind that everything you say is with their best interest in mind.
Yep.
Right. Trust is a huge thing in victory, right? Because with Joe Woods, that trust was gone. They didn't trust that he had their best interest in mind. And you saw the dissension real fast. That is something that's very important. You always have, once that's gone, if you feel like this coach is starting to look out for themselves, if you feel like this coach is looking out for other people, like, it has to be something to where you believe that your best interest is in mind with these coaches. And unfortunately, I don't know what Stump intended, but the intention only matters but so far, right? Like, if I didn't intend to hurt somebody's feelings, but I did, I still did hurt somebody's feelings, right? Like, it doesn't matter if I didn't intend it to or not. That doesn't change the fact that that person's feelings is hurt, right? And if you didn't intend to harm Kareem's reputation, if you didn't intend to make it difficult for Kareem to get a job, that does not matter as much as the effect that it's probably going to make it harder for Kareem Hunt to get a job now because of what you said. And when you do something like that, other players see it and they might have a hard time trusting you and trusting that you have the best interest in mind. Whether you intended to make it seem like you did it or not, you harmed somebody's reputation while you were speaking on your job. And that is something that you cannot really have in a locker room dynamic. Now, obviously, this all happened after he was fired. But even for Stump Mitchell, like, if his goal was to get another job, I don't think this was a great move or a great way of handling the interview, because I walk away from this thinking, well, I don't think I want Kareem Hunt. I don't think I want Stump Mitchell. It felt like it just blew up a bomb for both of them. And that's unfortunate because Stump's a running back coach with a good track record. And Kareem, he had 9 touchdowns this year. A little bit of a Trent Richardson in the AFL, the Alliance of American Football, AAF. Yes. Right. I don't know if y'all remember that Birmingham Iron, but Trent Richardson had like 300 yards, 12 touchdowns in that league, right? Man. Short yardage exclusively, like a little bit of that kind of flavor for Kareem, but still like a solid year, found a role for himself. And it's unfortunate because I don't know, like, he might have a hard time catching on with somebody after this because he's getting older. And then, like, look, the baggage he came into the Browns with, that's one thing. But when you start having football coach baggage, which is, I don't like the way he goes about it, and you start getting a bad reputation in there, that is more damaging than anything. So
that you said it beautifully, like, and you know, like, it's almost, you threw a perfect bow on it. You know, when keeping it wrong goes wrong, nobody wins.
And when keeping it real goes wrong, no, look, I say this to a lot of the viewers out there. If you're younger than me, if you're younger than 28, I'm telling you right now, there will be a moment where you are technically right. It don't matter. All right. Just learn to evaluate that. That is one of the biggest, I promise you, is one of the biggest keys to life, especially if you are a young, intelligent person, especially you a brother. Like, you will be right. It will not matter.
You will be right, but it's going to go wrong.
Yeah. You need to understand, hey, look, it ain't about that right now. It's about this. I need to focus on this. This is what's going on, right? I'm right. I didn't intend to hurt nobody's feelings. I'm right about that. I know what I intended, damn it. Hey, dog, only matters but so much. Somebody feeling hurt right now because something came out your mouth. So what you gonna do about it? Tell it it's not your fault? Hey, man, like, listen, you gonna have to do something about it, dog. Hey,
listen, nobody needs to know that you still listen to R. Kelly's music. Nobody
all
need to
right.
know that.
Well, G, that's gonna wrap the bow on this one. Gonna say
need to know that.
You can't say that.
Nobody cares that you still listen to that. You better lie about it.
No.
Lie. Never heard of them.
All right. Well, G Bush, thank you for coming on, man.
All
You
right,
always
man.
squeeze something. I think that's G Bush's version of Zadarius Smith, where Zadarius fake an injury to make sure he get off the field on time. That's what G Bush do to make sure he get off this damn interview in time. He's like, let me go say something out
He
of
always get
pocket.
hurt on second. Why you always hurt on first down, Zadarius?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'm gonna take
like
one
that's
play off.
G Bush like, all right, it's time for me to go. Let me go ahead and say something out of pocket real quick. Like,
inflammatory comments is coming. I'll be there in a second, babe. Let me just mention P. Diddy.
Okay, and that's gonna be it for G Bush this week. Y'all have a great one. Have an even better one. G, thank you for coming on. Everybody, peace. Man.